Do you find it difficult to understand what certain American expressions mean when they're used in the workplace? Do you want to get better at persuading others? Do you want to feel more confident that you are using expressions and language that they understand? Then this lesson is for you. Look, our sales system works fine. It's clunky, sure, but we know it inside and out. Our team's productivity is solid because they don't have to learn new software every 6 months. So what are they saying here? They're using this expression, it's clunky. Sure, but we know it inside and out. What is clunky? Clunky is another way of saying outdated. We know this is outdated. But, and here's the reason they give for continuing with this outdated system, we know it inside and out. Americans use the expression inside and out. Sometimes they use a similar expression, I know it like the back of my hand. This means you know something so well, you're an expert in it. It's clunky, sure, but we know it inside and out. What about the adjective solid? Our team's productivity is solid. This one's probably not too difficult to figure out. Solid is similar to saying complete. Our team's productivity is solid because they don't have to learn new software every 6 months. They're productive. Their productivity is solid. Let's go on. My marketing team is comfortable with what we've got. If it's not broken, why fix it? What does this mean? My marketing team is comfortable. We're satisfied. My team is comfortable with what we've got, rather than saying what we have. It's casual. Now, we have an expression, very common to Americans. If it's not broken, why fix it? The system is working fine. Why do we have to fix something that's working fine? Fix. Think of the word repair when you repair something. It's broken, we need to repair it. Rather than using the word repair, we use the word fix. If it's not broken, why repair it? Why fix it? Let's go on. And don't get me started on how much this sounds like a disruption to production. Our supply chain software is older, but it's stable. Our people understand it and they know how to handle the quirks. Here's an expression, don't get me started. Don't get me started on is another way of saying, I have another reason to object. Or I could present another reason to object, and this would be the reason. Don't get me started is enough in context. When you're already arguing about something, someone can say, don't get me started. Meaning they would have an opinion, but they really don't want to begin an argument, or they don't want to spend the time arguing. When we add, don't get me started on, then we have to continue explaining, don't get me started on what? Don't get me started on how much this sounds like a disruption. Notice the expression, how much this sounds like. What they're saying is that what I'm hearing from you makes me think we're going to disrupt this solid production. Our supply chain software is older, but it's stable. Our people understand it and they know how to handle the quirks. What does it mean to handle the quirks? We might begin first with, what are the quirks? The quirks are usually something unique. It could be a characteristic or it could be a particular flaw. They know how to handle the quirks. To handle it, to deal with it, to know how to maneuver and manage it. Jane expected this resistance. Legacy systems often become almost like a security blanket for the teams that use them. They're not perfect, but they're known quantities. They may not be perfect, but they're known quantities. This is again related to the familiarity. Remember, they know it inside and out. Let's go on. Introducing something new comes with the uncertainty of steep learning curves, potential disruptions, and ultimately fears of lost productivity during the transition. Let's look at a picture. It is an exponential curve, but it's quite steep. There's going to be a steep learning curve because there will be a lot to learn. Therefore, the learning curve will be rather steep. This brings uncertainty to the team. It brings potential disruptions and ultimately fears of lost productivity. So let's hear what she has to say. Legacy systems feel like that old reliable car that keeps chugging along, even if it needs more and more trips to the mechanic. Here we see another metaphor. Legacy systems feel like, figuratively speaking, like that old reliable car that is rather outdated, but it keeps working. We say it keeps chugging along. Think of an old machine with a conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt is still turning even though it's rusty, and maybe it even makes some noises. It keeps chugging along. She has let them know, she has heard their arguments, and now she says, but let me ask you this. What happens when something goes wrong and it takes days to find out? Why? Because your systems don't talk to each other. Or worse, when it takes even longer to fix because nobody has a clear view of where the problem started. So now Jane comes in. What will happen when things go wrong? Jane continues, I'm not here to make your lives harder, but we've all seen the issues. Orders get delayed because production wasn't aligned with sales forecasts. Support is left in the dark when customers complain. So the system isn't perfect after all. There have been issues. She uses the expression, we've all seen the issues. What does she mean? Support is left in the dark when customers complain. When you're left in the dark, you're left with no knowledge. You're left with no information. Customers are complaining to the support team, but the support team has no information to alleviate the customer's complaints because they are left in the dark. So we have one more coworker who raises a point, but that's a lot to disrupt. We're all strapped for time as it is. What's the real advantage here? What does this mean, strapped for time as it is? When you're strapped for something, you lack it. Often Americans will say, we're strapped for cash, meaning that we don't have the money for what we want or what we need. Here, we're strapped for time. We don't have enough time as it is. They're solid system, their comfortable system that they know all the quirks of, is actually causing them to spend a lot of time accomplishing tasks. Therefore, they cannot imagine what it would be like to disrupt this system. Here's Jane's response. Transparency and speed. Imagine if your team could see real-time data across all departments. She gives them an answer in 2 words, transparency and speed. Transparency, when there's full visibility. Speed. This is an accelerated motion. Quickness. Look at her expression. Imagine if. Imagine if your team could see real-time data across all departments. She smiles, knowing she's gotten buy-in. She realized she's convinced them, that she has persuaded them. I'm not suggesting we flip a switch overnight. This would be a phased approach with support and training every step of the way. Think of it as an investment, temporary discomfort for long-term gains. What is flip a switch? When you come into your house at night, you must flip the switch to turn the light on. Or when you leave your house, you must flip the switch to turn it off. She's not suggesting that they make it as quickly as flipping a switch. She also tells them to think of it as an investment, temporary discomfort for long-term gains. Now, this discomfort would be a temporary discomfort. It would be a short-lived discomfort in order to gain something that would be long-term.